The Legend of the Tartaro, Part 2, Basque Legends, Public Domain, Circa 1879. The Three Brothers, the Cruel Master, and the Tartaro. Like many others in the world, there lived a mother with her 3 sons. They weren't rich, but lived by their work. The eldest son said one day to his mother, "It would be great for us if I should go out to service." The mother didn't like it, but at last she let him go. He went off far, far away and came to a house and asked if they wanted a servant. They said yes, and they made their agreement. The master was to give an extremely high salary, 100,000 francs, but the servant was to do everything that the master ordered him, and if he didn't do it, the master was to tear the skin off of his back at the end of the year, and then to dismiss him without any pay at all. The servant said to him, "It is fine. I'm strong. I will work." On the morrow, the master gave him a great deal of work, but he did it easily. The last months of the year, the master presses him much more, and one day sent him into a field to sow 14 bushels of wheat in the day. The lad went sadly, taking with him a pair of oxen. He returned to the house very late in the evening, and the master says to him, "Have you finished your work?" He said, "No." "Do you remember the agreement we made? I must tear the skin off of your back. That is your salary." He tears the skin off, and as he had said, sent him away without any pay. His mother was in great grief at seeing him come home so thin and weak and without any money. He tells her what has happened, and the second brother wishes to start off at once, saying that he is strong and he will do more work than the other brother. But the mother didn't like it. However, she was obliged to let him go. He went to the same house as his brother and made the same terms with the master. When he had finished almost his year, the master sent him to sow 14 bushels of wheat. He starts very early in the morning with 2 pairs of oxen. But the night came before he had sown it all. The master was very glad at the sight of that. He stripped his skin off his back as well, and sent him away without any money. Think of the vexation of this mother in seeing both of her sons returned in this horrible, cruel fashion. The third son wishes to start off at once as well. He assures his mother that he will bring back both the money and he will bring his skin as well. He went to the same gentleman. He told this one too that he will give him a high salary, on condition that he will do all that he shall tell him to do, otherwise he shall have the skin torn off his back, and to be sent without any pay at the end of the year. So, the master made him work hard and well for 10 months, and then wished to try him. He sent him to the field and told him to sow 14 bushels of wheat before night. He answered, "Yes." He took 2 pairs of oxen and went off to the field. He plowed a furrow all around the field and throws his 14 bushels of wheat into it. He then made another furrow to cover it up, and at night he went home to the house. The master was astonished. He asked him if he has sown it. "Yes, it is all underground, you may be sure of it." The master was not pleased. He had his fears. The next day he sends him with 16 heads of cattle to such a field and says to him, "You must take all these cattle into the field without unlocking the gate or making a gap." So, Our lad took a hatchet, a hoe, and a fork, and off he went. And when he got to the field, he killed them all one by one. He cut them up with the hatchet and threw them with the fork into the field. He came home at nightfall and says to his master that all the cattle are in the field as he had told him. The master wasn't pleased, but he said nothing. The next day he told him to go to such a forest and to bring him a load of wood from there, but all the sticks quite straight. Our lad went off and cut down in the chestnut copse all the young chestnut trees which his master had planted, and which were very fine ones. And he came home. When the master saw that, he was not pleased and said to him, "Oh, tomorrow you shall go again with the oxen. And this time you must bring me a load of wood quite crooked, all quite crooked. If you bring only one straight twig, so much the worse for you." Well, the lad went off and pulled up a fine vineyard. After he had loaded his cart, he came home. When the master saw that, he couldn't say anything, but he didn't know what to think of it. He then sent him into a forest. In the forest there was a Tartaro, and all the persons and all the animals who went there were eaten up by the Tartaro. The master gave him 10 pigs, and also food for 10 days, telling him that the hogs would fatten themselves very well there, because there were plenty of acorns, and that he must return at the end of 10 days. Our lad begins, and he goes on and on and on, and there he meets an old woman who says to him, "Where are you going, lad?" "To such a forest to fatten these pigs." The woman says to him, "If you are not a fool, you will not go there. That horrible Tartaro will eat you." This woman was carrying a basket of walnuts on her head, and he said to her, "If you give me 2 of these walnuts, I will beat the Tartaro." She willingly gave them to him, and he went on and on and on. He met another old woman who was winding thread, and she said to him, "Where are you going, lad?" "To such a forest." "Don't go there. There is a horrible Tartaro there, who will be sure to eat you, and your pigs as well." "I must go there all the same, and I will conquer him, if you will give me 2 of your balls of thread." She gave them to him willingly, and he went farther and farther on, and there he found a blacksmith, and he too asks him where he's going, and he answers, "To such a forest to fatten my pigs." "You may just as well go back again. There is a horrible Tartaro there who will be sure to eat you." "If you give me a spit, I will beat him with it." "I will give it to you willingly." And he gave it to him with good will. Our lad went on and came to the forest. He cut off the tails of all his pigs and hid them in a safe place. The Tartaro appears and says to him, "How did you come here? I am going to eat you." The lad says to him, "Eat a pig if you like, but do not touch me." He takes his 2 nuts and rubs them one against the other. "I have 2 balls here, and if one of them touches you, you are dead." The Tartaro is frightened and goes away in silence. After having eaten a pig, he comes back and says to him, "We must make a wager. Which of the 2 will make the greatest heap of wood?" The Tartaro begins to cut and to cut. Our lad leaves him alone, And when he has made a terrible big heap, he begins to go around all the trees with his balls of thread and says to him, "You, that, but I, all this." And he goes on tying and tying. The Tartaro gives in, saying that he is more clever than he. As he had stopped his 10 days, he makes it in the night a great fire, and makes his spit red hot in it. While the Tartaro was sleeping, he plunged this spit into his only eye. After having taken his pigtails, he goes away from the forest without any pigs, because the Tartaro had eaten one every day. Near his master's house there was a well of the fairy. So the lad sticks it in there, the tails of all his hogs, excepting one, as well as he could. He then goes running to his master, telling him that all the pigs were coming home very gaily, and that they had got so hot in coming so fast that they had all gone under the mud. I wished to drag one out by pulling, but only the tail came away. Here it is. He goes off then with the master to this marsh, but the master did not dare go in there to pull them out. He goes off sadly with his servant home, not knowing what to think about it. There he counts out his 100,000 francs, and he went home proudly to his mother and to his 2 brothers. And there they lived happily, and their master was left with 100,000 francs less. It served him right for having so much. The Tartaro and Petite Perroquet. Like many others in the world, there was a mother and her son. They were very wretched. One day the son said to his mother that he must go away to see if he could do anything. He goes far, far away. He traverses many countries and still goes on and on. He arrives in a great city and asks if they know of a place for a servant. They tell him that there is one in the king's house. There, they tell him, he is to be a gardener. But he tells them that he does not know how to use a hoe at all, but that all the same he would learn it with the others. He was very nice looking. He soon learned it, and was liked by everybody. This king had a daughter, and she often noticed Petite Perroquet, because he was polite to everybody. In this city there was a prince, and he was paying court to the young princess, and he was seized with dislike and jealousy of Petite. One day this prince went to find the king. He said to him, "You do not know what Petite Perroquet says, that he could bring the Tartaro's horse here." The king then sent for Petite Perroquet and said to him, "It seems that you have said that you could bring the Tartaro's horse here?" "I certainly did not say it." "Yes, yes," said the king, "you said it." "If you will give me all that I ask for, I will try." He asks for a great deal of money and sets off. He travels on, and he had to pass a wide river. He spoke to the ferryman and paid the passage money, and told him that perhaps he will have a heavy load on his return, but that he will be well paid. He landed on the other side, but he had yet a long way to go in the forest, because the Tartaro lived in a corner of the mountain. At last he arrives and knocks at the door. An old woman came to him and says to him, "Be off from here as quickly as possible. My son smells the smell of a Christian a league off. To eat me here or eat me elsewhere, it is all the same to me." But he goes outside and hides himself under a great heap of cut ferns. He had scarcely been there a moment when he hears a deep breathing and a grinding of teeth, which sounded like thunder. He stopped where he was, trembling. The Tartaro goes to his house and asks his mother if there is not some Christian or other hidden somewhere around here. No, no, says she, but eat away. Your dinner is all ready. No, no, I must eat this Christian first. So he went hunting, looking everywhere, looking in every corner. He went to the heap of ferns and pulled off some to put them on one side. But our hero, Petit Perroquet, was quite at the bottom. The Tartaro was just on the point of finding him, but he grew tired and went indoors and began to eat and to drink enormously. Petit Perroquet crept out of his ferns and went off to the stable. The horse had a big bell around its neck, but he filled it with ferns. This bell was as large as the big bell in the church of Saint Jean de Luz. He mounts on the horse's back, and very soon he arrives at the ferry, and the ferryman comes to meet him. Together they got the horse into the ferry boat as well as they could, and they crossed the river. He gave the ferryman a handsome reward. As soon as he was on the other side, the Tartaro appeared, crying out to him to give him his horse back, and that he would give him all that he could wish for. He replied, "No," and went off at full gallop. When he came near the king's palace, he took out a fern from the bell, and everyone came running out of the doors or the windows. All the world was astonished to see Petit Perroquet return. The king was in ecstasy. He didn't know what to say, but he liked him. He liked him even more than he did formerly, as did the princess. The other prince was not at all pleased, and he began to think of some other plot. He went off to find the king and said to him, "Do you not know that Petit Perroquet says that he could bring the Tartaro's diamond?" The king sent for Petit Perroquet and said to him, "It seems that you can get the Tartaro's diamond." "I certainly did not say such a thing." Yes, you said it." No, I did not say it, but I will try if you give me all that I shall ask for." And he asks for a great deal of money. He went off. He reached the ferry and paid the ferryman well. He then went far away into the forest till he got to the house of the Tartaro. The old woman told him to be off from there, and he went and hid himself again in the ferns, and he stopped there until the Tartaro came to the house, just as he did the first time. He turned over nearly all the ferns and left him scarcely covered. He stopped quietly there all the time that the Tartaro was having his huge supper, and when he thinks he had finished and is taking his nap, he creeps out very gently. The Tartaro always puts his diamond under his pillow, and he takes it away without waking him. He escapes, running off as fast as he can with the diamond. The ferryman is there, and he crosses him over, and he pays him well. The Tartaro comes thundering down the road and appears on the other side again and calls out to him, "Give me back my diamond!" He said he would give him all that he could wish for. But Petit said no, and ran on the king's horse. When he arrived there, the king did not know what to do. One feasted and another feasted him, and all the world was busied about him, and everyone loved him more and more, and the princess as well as the rest. The wicked, jealous prince did not know what to think of it. He was eaten up with envy and jealousy, and he thought of something else and said to the king, "Petit Perroquet says that he can bring the Tartaro himself." The king sends for Petit Perroquet and says to him, "It appears that you have said that you will bring the Tartaro himself here." "No, no, I did not say anything at all like that. But if you will give me all that I ask for, I will try. You must have a carriage made of iron, half a yard thick, and 3 horses to draw it, and lots of money. When all that is ready, I will set out." He asks also for a barrel of honey, a barrel of feathers, and 2 horns. When he came to the ferry, it was no easy thing to get this carriage into the boat. When he has got to the other side, he first puts himself into the barrel of honey, and he then went into the barrel of feathers, and then he tied the horns onto his head, and then mounts as a postilion. He then comes to the Tartaro's house, and just then he happened to be at home. Petit Perroquet knocked at the door. The Tartaro comes to open it and asks, "Who are you?" "You!" "I am the oldest of the devils in hell." He opens the carriage door for him and says, "Get in here." The Tartaro went in, and Petit Perroquet very gladly started off and arrived at the ferry. He crossed as best as he could with his carriage and horses. He paid the ferryman generously and came to the king's palace. They were all terrified when they saw that he had the Tartaro in the cage. They tried to shoot him with cannon, but he caught the bullets and sent them back as if they had been balls to play with. They couldn't kill the Tartaro in any way, so they finished him with other arms. As Petit Perroquet had well gained her, they gave him the princess in marriage. He sent for his mother to the court, and as they lived, so they died happily.